Welcome to Betrayal Trauma Recovery, BTR.org. I'm Anne. I'm sure you remember what it was like when you were searching for help, maybe for your husband, hoping to find the right program or therapist. That's why I started podcasting. I supported my husband through 7 years of pornography addiction recovery, and not one therapist during that time told me I was experiencing emotional and psychological abuse and sexual coercion. I didn't want any other woman on the planet to be in the dark. If you're like the majority of my listeners, you're experiencing the type of abuse that's invisible and difficult to wrap your head around. Your husband is using porn or having affairs or lying to you, and you're getting the same bad advice about how to improve communication or your relationship. If you need support from women who totally understand, check out our daily group session schedule at btr.org/group. We'd love to see you in a session today. One simple, anonymous way to help spread the word is to click, follow, or subscribe to the Betrayal Trauma Recovery podcast on your favorite podcasting app. While you're there, every 5-star rating helps make this podcast more visible and will help save other women from getting the wrong kind of help, like a couple program that will make this type of abuse worse. For those of you who follow or subscribe to this podcast, thank you so much. Your support means so much to me. I have a member of the BTR community on today's episode. We're going to call her Tanya. I recorded this a few years ago. Before we get to her story, thank you to those of you who have rated the BTR podcast on Apple Podcasts and your other podcasting apps. At the time this is airing, we have over 1,300 ratings on Apple Podcasts, and our average rating right now is 4.7. There's so many other podcasts out there that don't use the abuse model when it comes to pornography and sex addiction, and they have a 5-star average. We're at a 4.7 because a bunch of men have given us a low rating. One of them said Anne thinks everything is abuse, which isn't true. I don't think non-abusive behaviors are abuse. A few people rated the podcast that don't agree that pornography is abuse. And then there's a few men who were claiming to be victims, wondering why I only talk about women victims. And I'm like, this podcast is specifically for women. That's why. This podcast is for women who have experienced emotional and psychological abuse and sexual coercion due to their husband's porn use and infidelity. I know we're always going to have some haters, but I just want to make sure that the haters don't dissuade women who are in our situation from taking this podcast or the materials available at BTR seriously. There's nothing better than a review from another woman who has gone through it. It was like, this podcast was exactly what I needed. So I'd like to drown out all of the men's reviews with 5-star reviews from women who get it. Here's one of the 5-star ratings we got. She said, I'm only a few episodes in on this podcast. I find myself nodding in agreement with every episode, every comment, every realization that someone knows and actually understands what I'm going through. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg, uncovering how long abusive men have been allowed to treat women so horribly and not label them properly as the abusers they are. Thank you for that 5-star review. Every single one of your ratings helps isolated women find us. Okay, now for my discussion with Tanya. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you so much for having me. Originally, I'm from Africa, but I moved to Canada when I was 16 years old. And I was young, my first time living without my parents. In our culture, we're not supposed to marry out of African community. He was a football player. He moved to Canada from Africa to play a minor league. And when we met, it was pure bliss to meet someone like him. I came from a society that men are very, I can say, machos. I had a couple family members that were involved in a very abusive relationship. And for me, it was easy to recognize, but I couldn't break it off right away because it would be kind of like dumb of me. I had to get to know him and see what was going on.
So when you say dumb of you, why did you think at the time it would be dumb of you to break it off?
Because I thought that I didn't give him a chance. I had friends around me also that were like, you need to get to know him better so that you can make that decision. So I felt like because of the peer pressure that I had around me.
So people are saying you can't just judge him right off the bat. You need to get to know him better. How does it progress from there?
At that time, I was only 18 years old and first time living in a different country by myself. I was just like, okay, I can make my boundaries. I'm not married to him. He's not really like my boyfriend. I have my apartment. I don't have to go to his house. But that summer, he got laid off from football. So he had to move back to United States where there is another league that wanted him. And I just felt like, yeah, he's moving back to United States and he's an American. I just thought, yeah, our relationship is done. I don't have to pursue that relationship anymore. But we reconnected again and we started dating. And he decided, oh, do you want to come to visit? I said, yes. And I just felt like, oh, I can rescue him. For some reason, I just thought like, I can talk to him. I can influence him in a better way. Because the difference between me and him, I felt like it was too wild. He was a football player. But I just started noticing differences amongst our values and whatever I believed about family. So when I came to visit in him here in the United States, I just told him, I don't really think this is going to work. One, because I'm just starting to see that our personalities don't really go together. And right away, I saw this anger come out of him. I couldn't believe. I grabbed my phone and I called my friend. I said, he is angry. He shows an anger that I don't think I can deal with. And my friend said, again, I think you're judging him for just one-time situation. You are in his country, so you should just chill out and calm down. He's a very good candidate for marriage because he wasn't speaking to me about marriage, but he would speak to my friends about marriage, that he would like to marry me, that I'm a very good person, that he likes me because I am not like this American woman. They're more into material things and I'm very grounded. So my friend said, I think you should try it. He asked me to marry him. My friends threw a big engagement party. I left my job, left my apartment, my car. I moved to United States. And that time, his friend was also married with a woman from Colombia. And she said, oh, let's go to a brunch. And when we were at the brunch, it was only 2 hours. We took a very long time to come home because our car stopped. And we were looking for someone to help us see what was going on with the car. He was calling me. I would say, no, our car stopped. And we're just looking for someone to help us. And we found this police officer, but he's helping us, asking a gentleman, someone just to come and see what was going on in the car. It took us 3 hours to get back home. As soon as we get back home, he pushes my phone. He throws the phone on the floor. He grabs my computer. He throws the computer on the ground. Everything is broken. I said, I am going back to Canada. My friend said, Tanya, what are you going to do now? You already accept this man's proposal. Now do you want to come back to Canada? What everyone's going to say?
Where's your friend from that was telling you this?
A couple of them were Canadians and 3 of them were from Africa as well.
Would you say where you're from in Africa, this was a cultural thing that men just get mad and it's no big deal? Would you say that's pretty common?
It's pretty common, but it depends also in the family that you came from, because my family were not like that. Meeting him and his family and the manipulation and the way they speak with each other and silent treatment, I only had experience with him. Right away, I already knew that this marriage was not supposed to happen because it was something that I've never experienced. And it goes back as well to pornography. Pornography was something that I never heard. Not in my house as I was growing up. Even with my friends in Canada, we never spoke about pornography. But when I came back to United States, he had invited me to go for Christmas to his parents' home in Chicago and sleeping downstairs in the basement. And he had pornography he wanted to watch. I was shocked. And then I said, no, your family is from Africa. How come you have pornography inside of your parents' home? This is not supposed to happen. I was so shocked that he had something like that inside of his parents' home, but I guess he was hiding. And he's like, let's watch. I said, no, I cannot watch it. Like, I'm a Christian. I cannot watch it. He was very angry again. There is so many women that would like to be with me. I'm an American football player. I played for NFL, for this team, for that team. And do you know how many women would like to be in your place right now? You're telling me no, it's just sex. I said, no, for me, it's not just sex. If we're married, sex for me in a marriage means something different. No, I cannot do this. And we broke up. We stopped talking for 3-4 days. But mind you, I'm already here in the United States. We're already preparing for this marriage. What am I going to tell people, that I'm breaking up because of pornography? Because I found out pornography in his parents' basement? Because I felt like everyone around me was just trying to invalidate me because I found this guy that played NFL. I guess it's a big thing. So I shouldn't say no for his needs. And I also noticed that he was able to get me as an African, I guess, humble, naive, that would bend to whatever it is that he wanted to. And the abuse was not just based on just pornography. It escalated to almost everything, not just from him, it was also from his family members.
So his psychological abuse isn't just coming from him, but he's also roping his family members into psychologically abusing you and coercing you?
Exactly. The psychological abuse from his family was, how can you speak up? Who are you? How dare you to go out there and speak up? This is our son. He's been doing so great. He plays football. He's very successful. You're supposed to be lucky that you have him in your life. Now you're coming to us, telling us that he's abusive, that he calls you names, that he takes stuff away from you because he took my green card away from me. He took my Canadian citizenship. He would take bank cards. Throughout our marriage, I did not have access to any finances.
So you ended up marrying him then?
I ended up marrying him. Yes, we were married for 9 years. This time that I left him would be my third time leaving him.
Okay. So in the meantime, financial abuse, spiritual abuse, psychological abuse, and sexual coercion, you've got people around you who you're trying to tell, they're not believing you, and you're not getting help. So talk about the first couple of times you left.
The abuse was also from his family. I would call his family. I said, next time he asks me to do any kind of sexual behavior that I don't want to, I'll call the police. Because how can I have sex with my husband and he calls me the B word? I'm not going to do that. And when I start speaking up, the family didn't like it. And they would start blaming me. They would say, no, it's you. You have a big mouth. You speak too much. The very first time that I left, his mom came from Chicago to Florida to visit. And she's saying very derogatory things about me. I went upstairs and I put my son to bed. And he says, you have to know that this marriage is between me and you. And if you want me to be closer to you, you have to understand that there is certain things that a wife is supposed to do. I said, what? He says, first off, we need to start with sex. If you can give me oral sex, I can go downstairs and speak to my mom to stop.
Wow. So sexual coercion right there. Yeah. In that moment, he's sexually coercing you.
And I left him. My son was only 3 months at that time. He wasn't calling, he wasn't contacting, which for me was fine because I have already gone through so much with him and no support at all around me. His dad calls me. I completely understand what you're talking about. I want to apologize, but we are Christians. And you have to understand, you guys are married and we don't believe in divorce. And I don't want you to raise a son without a father. I promise you that I'll take him to counselor. He'll do therapy and I'll be beside you. I just don't want you to tell anybody on what's going on because we don't want to wreck his career. Please come back. I am here and I'll support you. I said, I don't want to come back because it's been almost a year and I haven't seen any support from any of you. And I feel like you guys are blaming me for whatever it is that it's going on, and I don't even understand what was going on. That was the first time, and they begged and he asked, and I came back. 3 months of me being back, he was starting again verbally abusing me. It was just a cycle, verbally abusing me. No one will believe you. You just came back from Canada. I know there is something with you. You want to come back here to destroy my career. I said, but your dad promised me. So I stayed for another 3 years.
Yeah, that's really common. My mother-in-law told me that I was trying to ruin her son's life. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm trying to save our marriage by reporting these things. But this accusation that in-laws give, like you're trying to harm our son, is what a lot of in-laws say.
I was thinking it was because I was trying to destroy his life. I was trying to destroy his career. I was trying to destroy his family. But it was because he was having an affair with the woman from his gym. And not just one, there was multiple.
And his family knew about it and they still blamed you?
His family knew about it. His mom blames me. He would watch porno in front of me. He would sleep outside of the home. He completely isolated me from everyone. At this time now, I wasn't even able to contact my family member because I started to feel so ashamed. They started to tell me, Tanya, he is not a good person. You have been with him now for over 10 years. And all these 10 years, you already left him 2 times. These 2 times you decided to come back. This is the 3rd time now. There is nothing we can do because you chose to go back. You chose to believe in his family. So my family, practically, they washed their hands. And his family, they still be there, but not for me, but for him. I was home with my son, worried about COVID. He had this cough that we're afraid of. It was so congested. And he wouldn't give me the car keys or money to take my son to the hospital. That day, he came home at 1 o'clock in the morning. Me and my son was sleeping. And he comes upstairs, didn't take a shower, and he wants to jump in bed. And I told him, no, you can't. My son also looks at him and says, no, you can't. And he says, this is my home, this is my bed, I'll sleep here. I said, no, you can't. And I stand up off the bed, and as I was walking, he comes behind me and he starts doing like sexual movement. And I push him, and he tells me, B word, the S word, nobody wants me, nobody likes me, I am nothing. Look at me and look at him as a football player. Everybody wants to be with him, and I'm doing nothing. Other women would gladly be with him. I said, go, I don't care what woman would be with you, but I will not stand you talking to me like that anymore. Never again, not in front of my son. And he says, listen, tonight we'll see who's going to live. My son started crying, and I grab my son, I go to another room and I close the door. I run outside and he comes behind me. He grabs my nightgown and he pushes the nightgown, and I grab a picture frame And I throw the picture frame in his head. Right away, he starts screaming, "Today, I will call the police on you. You're going to be arrested." He calls the police. The police came in and they say, "What happened?" I start to explain. And he says, "Even my son saw her throwing the picture frame on me." And the police officers just take me in.
So you are arrested for domestic violence after being abused consistently for years. It happened to a friend of mine. We know that it does happen to victims. What happens next?
In jail, I felt this peace coming over me. I know God took me out of the situation because all these years I was not ever able to explain to anyone what was going on. When I went to church, I told them, "Listen, this is what he does sexually. This is what he says. Yes, I am his wife, but how can a wife have sex with her husband that does those things, that calls her name? How can I do that?" Everyone that I went to, they were telling me, "You have to try. You have to save your marriage. You have to try." The more I tried, the more he was abusing me. The more I cleaned the home, the more I became more submissive. The more I dressed up, the more I didn't spoke to my family. The more I didn't go to his place of work. The more I stayed home. Anything that I tried, it was abuse, to the point that I was starting to develop hives all over my body. I was starting to develop anxiety. Anyone that would come to my home, knock the door, I would have these panic attacks. When I went to jail, everything stopped. I stayed in jail for 3 days. I did not develop hives. I didn't have any panic attack. I slept so well that I woke up, I drink water. I felt so good. When I came out of jail, I didn't have a place to go because, again, he isolated me from anything that I know, everybody that I know. I couldn't go home. One of the moms called and she told me, "Oh, I want to invite you to bring your son. Let's go play soccer. Let's go to the beach. Let's go do something." I said, "Please help me. I just came out of jail." And she says, "Where are you?" I told her where I was, and right away she came to pick me up, took me to her home, and I stayed there for almost a month. After a month now, I had to find a place to go. And shelters, they were helping me with the food, and lawyers and people that I can talk to help me with my case. I'm here. I haven't gone home yet, and our case still going on. And he was fighting to take the custody of my son. For almost a month, I wasn't allowed to see my son. My lawyer was actually able to help me to regain back the custody. So now we have 50-50.
Okay. You're staying in an apartment with the help of the domestic violence shelter now.
Yes. And since I have been here in this apartment, he's been trying to contact me, telling me that he doesn't want to get a divorce, telling me that he's sorry, telling me that he doesn't know why he has been behaving the way he does. I still have this confusion in my head. Outside, everyone sees him as this wonderful man. He's a coach. He's a leader in a community. He goes to volunteer my son's school. He helps his clients develop this positive attitude about themselves, about their bodies and minds and soul. But at home, he was so disrespectful to me that I lost myself. After me going to jail, for me to be where I am, for him to say that he wants to go back with me, that he doesn't want to get a divorce, I am still confused. I am still lost.
Well, he does not want to lose control over you. When he says those things, that's grooming. He's trying to groom you back to be with him because he does not want to lose control over you.
Yes, I'm not important to him because he has never done anything to make me feel important. He really thought that I am only worth to take care of our son, have sex with him, clean the home, cook, and do whatever it is that he needed to do with me.
So in this confusion, are people helping you see through that? Because it is a really hard time to think, well, maybe he really does care, or maybe he really will change, or something like that. And that's a dangerous time because he's never shown any evidence of doing that. Is it easy for you to see it as grooming, or is it still just so traumatizing and confusing?
I'm speaking to a counselor and she's helping me saying, listen, you can speak to him, you can go back to his home, you cannot go to his gym, you cannot speak to his family members. He has a restraining order on me.
Despite that, he's contacting you to try and get you to talk to him?
He's the one who's contacting me. He's the one who calls me. He invited me to a staycation. He wants to buy me stuff. He keeps asking me if I need anything. And I ignore him. I blocked him from my phone, but he's still wanting to have that communication. And another part of the confusion just comes, maybe this fact of me going to jail, maybe something clicked on his mind and me filing for divorce. I keep going back and forth.
These similar thoughts go through every woman's head who is faced with this. Do I just put up with the abuse? What alternative do I have? Am I going to be homeless? Am I going to be able to have my son? You are not crazy. The only thing that these types of thoughts prove is that you are a victim of abuse. That's it. This is how victims of abuse think.
Yeah, I have a 7-year-old and I have nobody. And I just filed for divorce and I have no finances. I was not allowed to take any courses, any going to school, any training, nothing. I depended on him for almost everything and anything. So I am very sure because I know that my lawyer told me that he denied my request for child support and alimony. So I'm sitting down here and I'm still waiting. Until when am I going to continue to live in a shelter? Now my questions is, do I go back to Canada? And even if I go back to Canada, am I going to be able to take my son with me? And I cannot continue to be in a shelter having 50% of the custody, and I don't have financial means to take care of my son. And you also have to remember that I don't have my green card in order for me to get a good job.
Because he took your green card. What does your lawyer say about these circumstances right now?
She's helping trying to regain all my documentation that he has taken away from me. He was actually insisting that I should go and take a psychological evaluation when he was asking for my son's custody. He wanted me to do that. My lawyer said no. Just the simple fact that she doesn't have her documentation and all this year she hasn't been able to go see her family, that is proofs. So no, we're going to continue to support you. We're going to continue to listen to you, and we're going to be able to get something for you to survive, for you to be able to help your son. And I think this is where he knows that I am that vulnerable that I'm going to want to get help from him, so that my head would go back and say, oh, listen, I don't have anyone here and life is really hard out there. Okay.
Right. Yeah, you're in an extremely vulnerable situation, but you can get out of it. It's going to take time and effort, and it's so hard and probably seems impossible. But I just want all of our listeners who are listening, can we pray for Tanya? She needs us. She has nothing and needs our help. So many victims, even if they do have family, they still feel that sense of like, nobody believes me. I can't figure out how to fix this. And they feel stuck. So that feeling of being stuck is something that's really familiar to all of our listeners. We can really empathize with you.
But I think the impossible part is just the fact that I feel like nobody's listening. No one is listening. No one cares. That no one want to believe me. I also feel like, should I even pray? Because the times that I went to church and speak to them and having counseling in the church, and they kept pushing me back to that place of abuse. I keep having that picture of him masturbating in front of me, of him just completely disregard me in that way.
Mm-hmm. That's really extreme sexual coercion, psychological and emotional abuse that you're experiencing. It is mind-boggling to me that people out there think that pornography is not an abuse issue, or that women are not affected by their husband's porn use, or that somehow their infidelity, it's like just something that men do, that it's not an absolutely debilitating abuse to their spouse is crazy to me. It's interesting to me that in telling your story, you've been verbally abused, you've been psychologically abused. You've mentioned that several times. So one of the most traumatic things for you was the pornography. And people might be like, well, that wasn't a big deal. He punched you. And you're like, the thing that is most traumatizing was the sexual abuse.
It is because I really do feel that if it wasn't the sexual behavior, meaning the infidelity, watching porno, just having women at his disposal, it was the main aspect of the abuse. Because if I have access to this porno, women, infidelity in front of me, then when I come home, what do I need you for? But to be angry with you, not to respect you, to call you the names that I can call you. I really do believe the sexual for me was a very, very big thing, very big part of my abuse in my marriage. I really do believe that. Thank you so much for listening. I have been listening to you for a very long time. I came across your podcast, me listening to all the stories, and they resonate with me so much that you have no idea. And that made me strength that the first thing when I came out from jail, I just thought about you. It is very sad. I feel very sad and I feel very lost. I don't know where my life would go right now. And I am afraid. I do believe that there is a higher power out there. I do believe that I will come out of this very strong.
There are thousands of listeners to this podcast. And so just little old you, little Tanya, who thinks that no one is listening and that nobody cares. You've now just told your story to thousands of women. I mean, thousands, Tanya. You've listened to us on the podcast. We've been this, hopefully, light in the darkness. But in this moment, right now, we're all here with you. And I hope you can feel our love and our support across the world. We are here with you in sisterhood, and we will hope that God provides a miracle for you. Because not knowing where your next meal is going to come from and not having any control over where you're living and having no money and having no support system is a completely overwhelming situation. But I do know that God sees you. He's listening now. He loves you. And we love you in your absolutely crazy fight that you have to fight.
Yes, it is. It is crazy and it's scary and it's lonely. But I do have my son and I do have this podcast that I have been listening to, and it just made me feel I am not alone.
But you can do this. You are incredible and brave and strong. You are amazing. And I'm proud of you for coming on this podcast and sharing your story when you don't have a happy ending yet.
To anyone that is listening, I don't want to go back to that man. I would like to have my son with me. To everyone, send me that energy, that strength and courage to please made me be strong not to go back in the hands of that man, because I never knew rest until I went inside of that jail. I'm asking to please pray for me.
We will. You are one of us. We are with you. We will pray for you, Tanya. Thank you for being so brave and sharing your story. I want to thank everyone for listening. My heart is really tender right now. And not just Tanya's story, but the many stories that I've heard. I hear stories like this every day. And if you'd like to spend time with women who get it, with women who can sit with you in pain and totally understand because they've been in a situation that is similar, please attend a BTR group session. You can attend one today. We built our BTR group sessions for this situation, so no woman out there feels like she's alone. It's the least expensive, appropriate option out there, and it's unlimited live support, multiple sessions a day in every single time zone. We'd love to see you in a session today. If this podcast is helpful to you, please help us reach other women by following or subscribing and giving us a 5-star rating. Thank you for helping other women find us. If you've already purchased a copy of my book, Trauma Mama, Husband Drama, please circle back and give it a 5-star rating. A lot of women are searching for books about betrayal trauma on Amazon, and rating Trauma Mama will help them find this podcast, which is free to everyone. Your donations keep this podcast going. Go to our website, btr.org, scroll to the bottom, click on Support the BTR Podcast. And until next week, stay safe out there.